Welcome to this MSCA4Ukraine webinar on open science principles and practices. We're very pleased to have you joining us this morning, and a very warm welcome also to our speakers. So today we will have 3 presentations on different aspects of open science, each taking around 15 minutes. And then we will finish up with a question and answer session. So all in all, we aim to conclude the webinar this morning around 12:30 Central European time. But before we begin with the presentations, I'd just like to give a very brief overview of the MSCA4Ukraine scheme and to also go through some housekeeping matters. So my name is Sarah Field, and I'm a program officer for MSCA4Ukraine with Scholars at Risk Europe, which is the lead coordinator for MSCA4Ukraine. Together with our partners at the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation and the European University Association, we implement the scheme. We also have 2 associate partners, the PAUSE program hosted by the Collège de France and the Global Scholars at Risk Network. So just for those who may not be too familiar with MSCA4Ukraine, it's an emergency response funded by the European Union to the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation. Broadly speaking, it comprises 4 categories of activity. We have fellowships, help desk and matchmaking services, career development and networking, which is of course the category under which today's activity falls, and then support for reintegration to Ukraine if and when safe conditions allow. So the scheme was launched in October 2022, and by the first cutoff date of the 11th of November, we had received over 400 applications. An additional almost 200 were submitted by the time the portal closed on the 25th of November. The team, with thanks to our colleagues at AVH, managed to recruit a pool of over 450 independent reviewers from 45 countries. And a broad range of disciplines and expertise were represented within this pool. And we think that the large number of reviewers recruited shows the remarkable solidarity with the Ukrainian people and with Ukrainian researchers amongst the academic community. We also then had a selection committee comprised of independent experts and organizations of representatives of organizations assisting scholars at risk, which oversaw the final stages of the selection process. So the results of the scheme were announced in February 2023 by the European Commission, marking the first anniversary of the full-scale invasion. As you can see, 124 fellowships were awarded across 21 host countries. And you can see on the slide the top 10 host countries and the top institutions with more than 3 awards. On this next slide, you can see the gender breakdown between male and female awardees and candidates, and also the number of fellowships awarded per discipline, with life sciences having the largest number of fellowships. And so more information on the scheme is available on our website, should you be interested in that. So in terms of current and upcoming activities, we are, of course, implementing the 124 fellowships awarded, and we are also hosting career development and networking events, such as this webinar today. Beyond that, we assist eligible but unfunded MSCA4Ukraine applicants to seek alternative funding opportunities. And we do this by liaising with national contact points and other relevant entities in Europe and beyond to leverage support for those who had submitted high quality research proposals but could not be funded due to budgetary constraints. We also engage individually with researchers from Ukraine to provide follow-up tailored support and advice. So you can, of course, find further information on our website. And if you have any specific questions regarding the scheme, please contact our help desk at msca4ukraine@mu.ie. So moving back to today's event, I'd just like to quickly go through some housekeeping matters before we begin. We, of course, encourage you to ask questions of our speakers. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to do so. There is also a chat function where you can introduce yourself and talk to fellow participants, but just please ensure that any specific comments or questions for our speakers are posted in the Q&A facility. This webinar is being recorded, but please be assured that your participant names are not being shown. The recording will be made available on our website and on our YouTube channel within the next few days. We will also send out a short survey following the webinar to all participants to invite some feedback on what you thought of today's event and what we could do to improve. So please do complete that form. And so without further ado, I am very pleased to present our agenda for this morning. The first presentation will be an overview of open science in the EU, presented by the excellent Dr. Victoria Tsoukala, who has a lot of experience and expertise in this area. She will also give the second presentation, which will be a guide to the European Commission's open access publishing platform, Open Research Europe. And then finally, we are delighted to have a project team from Leibniz University, Hannover, who will present on one of their many projects to support the higher education and research sector in Ukraine. And that project is called Open Educational Resources with Ukraine. So I will now stop sharing my screen, and I will introduce Dr. Victoria Tsoukala, who is our first speaker this morning. So Victoria Tsoukala has been a policy officer in the European Commission Directorate General for Research and Innovation since 2016. She works on the development, implementation, monitoring and evaluation of policies in open science. In particular, she works on Horizon Europe, the new research and innovation framework programme of the European Commission, and also on the publishing platform of the Commission, Open Research Europe. She used to be a researcher in archaeology in the US and Greece, and she holds a PhD and MA in classical and Near Eastern archaeology from Bryn Mawr College in the US. So Victoria, I'd now invite you to provide your presentation. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this invitation, and I'm very happy and honored actually to be presenting for MSCA4Ukraine today. Let me maximize the presentation and minimize whatever can be minimized. Right, video panel. No, I can still see some things. Yes. Are we okay now? Is the screen clear?
Yes, I think your screen is clear.
Perfect. So welcome to this webinar on open science. I mean, we think open science is an enabler actually of good science and good research. And even much more so during difficult times and times of war, where people have also and researchers and colleagues in Ukraine have greater difficulties accessing actually research materials, or possibly at times even communicating them. So it's even more relevant for us now. So in the following, I just wanted to present you the overall policy of the EU and then the requirements in Horizon Europe, which also hold true for the Marie Curie Fellowship programs, and then our publishing platform, which was initiated a couple of years ago as a second part. So I will present the first part, and then maybe if you would like, I can stop for questions and then continue to the second part, unless directed otherwise. So an introduction to open science policy in the EU. So what is open science actually? And of course, there are there are different definitions. For us, it is really a way of doing research, and it is defined actually in the Horizon Europe regulation, which is the basic legal text that underpins this framework program for research and innovation. So open science is an approach to the scientific process which is based on open and cooperative work tools and diffusing knowledge. This includes, of course, early sharing of research and the participation of the broader society in knowledge production, as well as diffusion effectively. Why do we think it's important? The European Commission, of course, is a policymaker. It is also a funder of research. So it's very vested, actually, in the return to the euros that we pay, that the taxpayer, the European taxpayer, pays for the research. So open science is very important because it improves research quality. So the transparent, accessible, and reusable methods and outputs facilitate reproducibility of research, and this leads to higher robustness and reliability of research. So it really, the most important argument in favor of open science really has to do with the fact that, practicing in, open science, in the open science way, or implementing open science practices, if you wish, leads to better research, leads to ultimately higher quality and more robust and reliable research. It also accelerates research efficiency, since by sharing and reusing the methods and outputs, it enables researchers to easily build upon others' work more easily than normally, and this leads to faster research progress. So this is also quite important. It makes research more efficient. And finally, last but not least, it does enhance the impact of research. So the research methods and outputs are visible and accessible to the public and the private sectors. So this facilitates inclusiveness, the valorization of research and practical applications of research, and leads ultimately to greater trust in research and increased uptakes and use of research outputs by researchers, by society, and of course by industry. It leads to certainly to more innovation. For these three main reasons, we are very much into open science, and it's a main element policy in the framework program. It even is more important when you see what the current situation is. So the current situation is that 50% and more of scientific publications, actually less than 50%, to say it differently, are available in open access, meaning that more than 50 are actually closed. So you need to have some sort of subscription, which of course is quite costly to access it. Secondly, and one of the reasons why this happens, of course, is that authors hand over their copyrights to publishers, right? So that's quite an important obstacle to open science, and in particular, of course, to open access, which is a pillar of open science. Then, if you think about research data, you note at the bottom left that researchers who occasionally store research in shared repositories are 4 in 6, so less than half, again, of researchers use shared resources and trusted repositories to store their research. They mostly keep them, in their computers or in local storage solutions. And very worryingly, less than 20% of researchers put FAIR principles into practice. FAIR principles, probably a lot of you know, this means findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And there are principles that by now are very broadly accepted as pillars, again, of how digital objects and indeed data should be circulating. To add to all of this, of course, rather limited access anyway to research, less than 50%, or a lot less for research data if researchers do not widely share it. It's quite important to publish in view of attracting funding and in view of progressing in your career. You know that very well. So open access and publishing, of course, is a very important aspect in open science, and is very intricately connected to the assessment system. And the current problems with the assessment system, of course, are a bit of an impediment to the progression of open science. And here in the very center, you see how much money in total is invested per year in pan-European research infrastructures by member states. It's a big amount. And research infrastructures are also very relevant because a lot of them actually concern data. They concern databases and the ability to share resources such as data across Europe and beyond. So open science is even more relevant because it's very relevant actually because you see that the climate is not open enough yet. So it's not conducive to those conditions that will support openness and the better way of doing research. So we have a lot more work to do yet. So therefore, the European Commission, the EU is very very set on improving, and it has been so for many years. Here, just very briefly, you see that there is a series of actions in the European Union on open science. Already in 2018, there was a recommendation on access to and preservation of scientific information. That's a revision of 2012, and a series of Council conclusions and communications of the Commission on the new European research area for research and innovation, where open science plays a very critical role. And finally, in the last 2 years, 22 and 23, we've had very strong Council conclusions on research assessment and the implementation of open science, showing actually that and asking member states to start revising the research assessment procedures to more qualitative and less, relying on research on impact factor and journal metrics, and more qualitative and broader indicators and supporting open science. Similarly, the last Council conclusions of May support more equitable and trustworthy scholarly publishing, also a little bit different and moving away from the commercial publishing model that we know thus far. So in all of these things, open science has a very big part. So how do we do it in the European Commission? We embrace open science as a modus operandi of research by improving the actual practice, but also developing enablers. So we support immediate and unrestricted open access. We support and require, in fact, as I will show you, research output management, and in particular research data management in line with FAIR principles. We support the early and open sharing of research, as well as support the reform of research assessment as an enabler to open science, support improving the legislative and regulatory environment to practice open science. And we currently have a big action in the context of the European research area to see how fit the legislative and copyright framework is actually for practicing research, as well as, of course, supporting with infrastructures and skills, supporting the European Open Science Cloud Virtual Research Environment, Open Research Europe, which I will talk to you about briefly, as well as skills and education for open science and data-intensive research. So we know where we want to go, and we are gradually setting up the steps to get there. So in specific, in Horizon Europe, what is it that we're doing? And this is just a very brief slide to show you that Horizon Europe is, it's not revolution, but rather evolution. And you see how this started with a pilot on open access, and how now really in Horizon Europe we have a very strong framework program that supports open science, and not only open access is a pillar, but it strengthens open access obligations, focuses on responsibility, on responsible research data management in line with FAIR principles, and embeds open science across Horizon Europe. So in reflecting this more general policy that I showed you in the beginning, what is the Horizon Europe strategy? What are the requirements that you have as beneficiaries and grantees of Marie Curie programs for open science? So if you can see here, there's three main pillars, let's say. The first two are obligations that you see, so open access to scientific publications and research data management. And the third one is an encouragement to help researchers move towards open science practices. So the two first bullet sections are required. So open access to peer-reviewed scientific publications is mandatory. There are no exceptions for that. It is also immediate in Horizon Europe. And this is a change from Horizon 2020, where there was embargo. So here you have to provide immediate open access through a trusted repository under a Creative Commons attribution license. And the metadata has to be under a CC, a Creative Commons 0 license. You need to provide information about the data and tools you used so that someone can validate your conclusions. And in fact, if those data and tools are not open and someone wants to validate your conclusions, they may ask you for access to those underpinning materials, and you're obliged to give it. Another very important element is retention of intellectual property rights. So we ask that the researchers or their institutions retain intellectual property rights to comply with those open access requirements. So transferring rights to publishers that will prevent you from doing what we are asking above, such as immediate open access under CC BY licensing repository, is not acceptable. It's a breach of a contract. And finally, because we do support that open access publishing is the way to the future, we do not, in other words, envision publishing that is closed, that someone has to pay to access by any stretch of imagination. We do not support those so-called hybrid, funds for hybrid venues, which are journals or platforms that part of their, their content is open and part is closed. So we only reimburse fees if you publish in full open access journals or in full open access monographs or in full open access platforms. So this is quite a strong policy, and we're very happy to see actually that it's been emulated gradually, and we see that the United States, also the UK with a research policy, they look very much like what we have here. So this is very good for alignment. In terms of research data, in Horizon Europe, research data management is mandatory, so you cannot get out of it if you produce or if you reuse research data. But there are exceptions to open access if there are reasons for this, and I will explain this. So research data management has to be done in line with the FAIR principles, and the data management plan is mandatory and it's a deliverable to your project. Open access needs to be provided through a trusted repository under a CC BY or CC0 license, and the metadata under a CC0. That is, of course, if your data is open access, and I will explain then. If it's not open access, then you explain the data management plan why part or all of your data is not open access. And then again, here you also have to provide information about the software and other tools needed to validate or reuse your data. And maybe I can go to the next slide to explain. Yes, to explain to you why research data can be closed. Research data can be closed if providing access is against your legitimate interests, and especially if you want to exploit research data commercially afterwards, then we understand that it can be closed. Nonetheless, you mentioned this in your data management plan. Or if it has issues such as data protection rules, privacy, confidentiality, trade secrets, also union competitive interests, security rules, a third party, especially intellectual property rights, or if this would be against the obligations of the grant agreement, other obligations. So in this case, your data can be closed. Finally, we support additional open science practices beyond publication and data, such as research output management beyond publications and data, early and open sharing of research, such as in preprints, in pre-registration, register reports, etc., or measures to ensure reproducibility of research outputs, as well as, of course, involving citizens and other end users in co-creating research agendas and content. And we encourage this actually through the evaluation of proposals. And in the evaluation, open science is evaluated in the excellence criteria. So it's under the methodology, and we want that open science is actually interweaved in your proposal as part of the methodology. It's not something separate. And you have one page to describe the open science practices, and 1 page to describe research data output and management. Of course, I think maybe in the Marie Curie it's a little bit different, so it depends on each particular funding instrument. And also, we ask that expertise or track record in open science is explained, as well as in the list of publications, we steer away from the journal impact factor, which is not assessed. So if you have publications, their significance needs to be explained and evaluated qualitatively, not on basis of information that you give. And of course, if you have extra, extra practices that are beyond those required, we actually boost those in evaluation, and this can get you extra points, basically. Although they're not punished, of course, if you don't do them, because they're an incentive. Finally, we have, and I will finish this section here. I realize I'm a couple of minutes late. The concept of trusted repositories. So repositories are very integral to our policy. You need to deposit data and publications in trusted repositories, which means that they're either certified or they're discipline and domain repositories that are accepted by research and endorsed rather by research communities, or general purpose repositories and institutional repositories that meet those properties described below, so that they have policies that they on all these different topics that are mentioned here. If you do not have an institutional one, Zenodo, which is maintained by Sören and is also funded by the Commission, is a repository that you can use, and it does not. It's trusted, and of course you don't pay, right? Here's a list of some resources. If you want to understand open science in the preparation of your proposal, I'd recommend you read the program guide, especially the first pages. And then there's another 10 pages of examples of resources, etc. To understand well the first section of mandatory agreements, do read the annotated grant agreement. This explains what we mean for the requirements. And to understand how open science is evaluated, we have a rather instructive video, support video for evaluators that can help you. And finally, a template that you can use or not use to prepare for your DMP, but it's good for inspiration. So this was the first part on open science. And I don't know if you would like me to stop here and get some questions before continuing to Open Research Europe, or would you like me to continue?
No, please continue, Victoria. Thank you.
Okay. So as I said earlier, in trying to create enablers for open science and the mainstreaming of open science through research practice, we instituted Open Research Europe. So that was in 2021, in March 2021. So what is Open Research Europe? Open Research Europe is a peer-reviewed open access publishing platform. So it's like a mega journal, you can think about it. It's not a repository. I mean, it's somewhere where you send your publication to be reviewed and published. So it is for our grantees. So you are eligible if you're a grantee of MSCA4Ukraine, Horizon Europe funding. You are eligible for it, and you do not have to pay. And of course, it is an optional service. So you can use this during your project and after the end of your project for up to 5 years. Another good thing about it is that if you publish there, you automatically comply with Horizon Europe open access requirements, not only because you publish in open access, but because effectively Auer sends this publication to Zenodo. So it sends it to a repository where it becomes open access, and this is what fulfills technically your requirement for open access through a repository that Horizon Europe has. Aside of all of this, it implements a very innovative publishing model initiated by a funder, and this may be new but not unique. There are other funders doing this, supporting publishing platforms for their beneficiaries, such as the Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, the Irish Health Board, and more recently, I mean, we're discussing with many European funders to turn Open Research Europe in a few years into a collectively supported publishing platform, so that it's not just funded by the Commission, but by many funders together. So this innovative publishing model is the so-called post-publication open peer review, which means that first you send a publication and it's published, and then the peer review takes place. And I will explain the model in more detail. It's very good that all articles and the reviews are open access under CC BY licenses. So it's very transparent in this way. So the peer review is transparent and everything is accessible. It has high scientific standards and policy. So it has a scientific advisory board that steers scientifically the direction and that vets all policies of the platform, publishing policies and guidelines, etc. And has very strong policies and guidelines regarding transparency and reproducibility. So it has a very strong data availability policy, method policy. So all these things are actually scrutinized when you publish in Open Research Europe. So really, it is a transparent service, both in its editorial processing, that everything is open, but also in that it supports actually transparent and reproducible research through all its requirements. It publishes in all disciplines, and you shouldn't imagine that everything is dumped in together, of course. Gradually, as content accrues, we create community gateways and collections in specific fields and research interests. When researchers want to have their own space there, these are created. You can think of them as mini journals. We don't like to think of them this way, but effectively they serve the interests of specific research communities. Currently, after 2.5 years of operation, it has about 500 articles, close to that, a bit less than that, and 900 reviews. And gradually it's been indexed in important indexers and national lists. So it is listed in Scopus and PubMed. It does not have a journal impact factor, as I told you. It is a platform that supports the idea that we assess the scientific and other impact of each paper, and not by the impact factor of the platform as such. This is a by proxy actually assessment. So we do not support this. So this actually plays very well into the broader policy that we support in the Commission to revise research assessment to a better way, actually, and more qualitative way of assessing in a fairer way. So this is paid by the Commission. It's operated through a public procurement, so it's a very transparent procedure as well. It's operated by 4000 Research, which is a publisher and service provider. Here's the innovative publication model. So how does this post-publication peer review work? First, you submit your article. You need to read, of course, the guidelines and the policies, which are, they are demanding. I would lie if I said that they're not. And then the team behind it, so the editorial part is managed by F1000. So the area editors will do this whole slew of checks that you can see here for plagiarism, whether authorship, eligibility, ethical approvals, whether necessary, if they adhere to the policies and guidelines for everything, for data, for this and that, for so you need actually to spend a little time to see what is required, whether it's written in appropriate language, where the data is available, the underpinning data needs to be available. So unless your data can be closed, as Horizon Europe says, so the policies are those of Horizon. So in some cases, data can be closed. Nonetheless, you do need to fill a data availability statement, and in principle, your data needs to be open and linked to the paper and deposited, of course, at publication time. As well as they look very closely at the method and whether these methods are solid. And so if this all is so, the paper is published. It's so it's not really a simple preprint, right? Because there's a lot of work behind this. It's published and it's also laid out. It has a layout, a publication layout. And then reviewers are invited to review the publication. So the author actually suggests the reviewers, but of course there's a lot of checking behind that, and I will tell you about that, especially for conflicts of interest and for the appropriateness of the reviewers. And also, of course, F1000 suggests, if necessary, as well. So 5 invitations need to go out to reviewers, and so they go out and they give a qualitative review, and I will give you the details of that. And then they can approve with reservation or not approve an article. Their reviews are published, right? And their comments are published. So, and it's very clear to see on the website if it's approved or not approved. The status of a publication is quite clear. You will never be mistaken or confused whether something has passed peer review or is undergoing peer review or not. So, and you will be able to read, of course, the peer review and cite the peer review. It also gets a DOI. The peer reviews also get a DOI. So once you have either 2 approved reviews or 1 approved and 2 question marks, so 1 review and 2 reviews with question mark, this is considered to have passed peer review, and then it will be sent to indexers and repositories. Of course, if reviewers ask for revision and major revisions, the author will need to revise and submit a new version to pass peer review, and it follows the traditional sort of trajectory of back and forth to where the reviewer is satisfied. Usually with the second version they are satisfied, and you can see where it's indexed, and of course also it goes to Zenodo, and that satisfies the Horizon Europe requirements. All the versions have DOI of the publication and the peer reviews, which are citable. So we think that this is a very beneficial model for researchers. It's impactful. It gives immediate access to the research. It provides article level metrics, citations, downloads, etc. Also social media, metrics. The open data policy and reproducibility is very important because it leads to better research and to reproducible articles. It is efficient because the open peer review is rigorous and transparent, and of course the scientific advisory board backs the platform. As I said, it's an optional service. You don't have an administrative burden, you don't have fees, and you automatically comply with the open access requirement. The open peer review that we have here also is a win-win situation, and you will have the slides to study, but it allows, of course, research to be cited as well, the peer review. It allows, reduces the possibility of bias. It includes possibility for collaborations, and authors are empowered to lead this process actually, and leads actually to good, transparent, scholarly conversation. And it's also good for the reviewers, right? They have an incentive because they get a credit and recognition from open peer review. They have metrics. They can the reviews can be cited through DOIs, and so it's quite a good thing, and we have a very positive feedback on it. You see that Auer supports a series of articles, many different articles, 14, I think, at least different types for all different disciplines. So in that sense, it allows you to publish throughout your research project and your research process. I mean, you can start writing a method article early in your research, or a register report, a study protocol gradually, and then move towards, research articles or case studies or data notes. So it's really quite interesting. These many different types of articles to allow you to publish throughout your research. Here's just to show you the peer review process. And of course, the editorial team, they're suggested by authors, the reviewers, but the editorial team, of course, ensures that they meet the criteria or suggests others and additional ones. They must answer an extensive list of questions which guides the review process, which is appropriate for different domains, and follow reviewer code of conduct. So, of course, once they're done, the editorial team will check that everything is appropriate, and then the review will be published. Here, I'm just showing you this small piece to show that there are communities within Auer. There are some broad gateways like, Marie Skłodowska-Curie or COST. then some community gateways, which are also rather broad, and then the collections are the more domain-specific or research-specific, research community-specific areas that are started when researchers ask for it, or when we see that there is a, it's good to start one because there is interest. So you can always find a home in Auer if you so wish, if you're a research community looking for a home. So, and this I will go through very fast. As I said to you earlier, we discussed with other funders the possibility of supporting collectively Auer in the future. So it will become even stronger. It is a strong commitment of the European Commission, but it will be even more so with many other funders, and there's a number of them interested, and we're working now on how to implement this. So I invite you as grantees, or if you are going to be grantees, to try Auer. So get a first publishing experience there with research articles, but also with one of those other articles that I mentioned earlier, such as case study, method protocols, etc. Try to be a reviewer. That's good. It's good. Auer acknowledges your work there and allows reports to be cited. Also, if you're early career researchers, which you are in most cases in the MSCA, we have a module which is co-reviewing, which you can do with your advisor, but both your names appear, which is really cool, actually, I think, because it gives credit to researchers, to PhDs and postdocs for work that is often not seen, that they do. Or consider starting a collection if you're a group of researchers or projects that reflect specific and shared interests that need to find a publishing home. So I urge you to explore. And sorry I did not put the if you search Open Research Europe, but I should have put the address as well, a very strong Twitter X account that we have, and a series actually of videos that are explanatory, and they're very good in the RTD Research Innovation YouTube channel. So I will add a slide to this presentation for when it is distributed. Thank you very much. That's it. That was a bit, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Victoria, for that very detailed and comprehensive presentation. I see there are a lot of very useful resources there that you've pointed to, so we will make sure that those resources are circulated to participants. And of course, the slides, as you mentioned, will be available to participants after the webinar. So just a quick note that we will take questions at the end of the webinar. I see there are a few questions coming in there, so we will return to Victoria in a moment to direct any questions towards her. But I would now like to move on to introduce our next speakers. They are a project team from Leibniz University, Hannover, and we are very pleased that they could join us this morning to talk about their research project. So I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Sören Auer, who is the director of TIB, the Leibniz Information Center for Science and Technology University Library, and also head of the research group Data Science and Digital Libraries at Leibniz University, Hannover. Professor Auer has made important contributions to semantic technologies, knowledge engineering, and information systems. He is the author and co-author of over 200 peer-reviewed scientific publications and has received several awards, including an ERC Consolidator grant from the European Research Council. He has also led several large collaborative research projects, such as the EU Horizon 2020 flagship project, Big Data Europe. He was founding director of the Big Data Value Association and is an expert for industry, European Commission, the German National Research Data Infrastructure, and the European Open Science Cloud. And he is joined this morning by Margaret, who has been head of the Competence Center for Non-Textual Materials at the TIB since 2012. Her focus is on the user-centered development of innovative structures tools and services to make open educational resources, science teaching videos, research data and scientific software accessible, searchable, citable and archivable. At TIB, she is responsible for several services and infrastructures such as the TIB AV portal, and has led and supervised a number of successful grant proposals with the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, as well as Erasmus Plus and Horizon 2020. And of course, last but not least, I would like to introduce Nataliya Butych, who is the Regional Coordinator for Central and Eastern Europe at the International Office of Leibniz University, Hannover. Since 2010, she has been developing and fostering international university collaboration within the region, and designing and implementing exchange and collaboration projects, and supervising and or coordinating DAAD funded cooperation and mobility programs. She has served as managing director of the German Ukrainian Academic Society in a voluntary capacity since October 2022. So thank you very much to our speakers for joining us this morning, and the floor is now yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zara. I will start maybe with a brief introduction of TIB and the projects we are doing, and then hand over to Margaret to talk a bit more in detail about the project OER with Ukraine, ensuring academic success in the times of crisis. And TIB is on the one hand a university library of the Leibniz University of Hannover. So, but we are also a bit independent. We also fulfill a national role of being the German National Library of Science and Technology. So we get approximately 2/3 of our funding as member of Leibniz Association from the federal state and the German states. We are the world's largest specialized library in science and technology and have a collection of unique resources. And we run increasingly many digital infrastructures. Many of you have maybe heard about DataSite that was started and founded by TIB, and we still host the office of the DataSite Association. Meanwhile, it's an international association with hundreds of members worldwide for making data citable. This is just one example. So we run a number of these digital services. In order to further develop the services, we perform research and development, and we also work in the area of knowledge transfer. Overall, we have more than 600 employees at TIB from 30 nations, so we are quite international. Now also many Ukrainians, and our budget overall is around 50 million euro. So we are very committed to open science, and this means not only open access, which we drive forward. For example, we are in Germany driving forward the open access transformation with the deal contracts, and we run or develop an open access publishing platform with TIB Open Publishing. But we also run open infrastructures. We develop open source software. We run a platform for open educational resources for the state of Lower Saxony, but also on a broader scale, an index for searching for open educational resources worldwide. We are committed to open data, to citizen science. We have an open science lab where such citizen science approaches are pursued. So in many aspects, or almost all aspects, the work we do is open. And if we go on the next slide, we see a bit this overview of different services we provide. So we want to support researchers, so in academia, but also in industry, in the whole life cycle of research, from finding topics, assigning topics, to obtaining information, over processing information, producing texts or content, and then also distributing that. And there is a large number of services which we develop in that regard. like I mentioned already, data site and PIDs, for example, as infrastructure for persistently identifying artifacts, not only documents with DOIs, but also data sets, for example, software tools. I mentioned the Twilio or ERSI portal, which is for open educational resources. Our flagship project, and maybe I share the link to that on the chat, is the Open Research Knowledge Graph. So it's not so much in the focus of the talk today, but still, if you are interested, I would be very happy if you went to the website, because this addresses a major problem we have in science and scholarly communication with the flood of publications, and we want to organize with the Open Research Knowledge Graph scholarly information, scientific contribution in a novel way, in a semantic database, this Open Research Knowledge Graph. Yeah, I mentioned the PID services already, and TIP Open Publishing and Open Access Publisher we are building up, and maybe a last service I want to mention is the conference recording service, which records conference videos and makes them available in the video portal, the AV portal, which I think Margaret will talk a bit more soon. Yeah, and before I hand over to Margaret, I would like to mention that in addition to the OER with Ukraine project, where we, for example, organized the workshop also and identified joint research topics, and we are now also looking for funding schemes to tackle some of those, and we have identified a number of project ideas. We also now collaborate in the DG Uni project, an Erasmus Plus project, for universities to strengthen the digital environment for higher education in Ukraine. So this is coordinated by Taras Shevchenko National University in Kiev, and we have 6 EU member states involved and 15 Ukrainian partners. So this is another project from our portfolio, which also contributes to mitigating a bit hopefully the effects of this terrible war against Ukraine. Yeah, and with this, I would like to hand over to Margaret, who will present in more detail the project and the work we do in OER with Ukraine.
Thank you so much. We'll do it with Margaret together, and I will start.
And of course, Nataliya, I forgot. Sorry, Nataliya.
So we used all this expertise that TIB has for the project that was initiated back in 2022 by Leibniz University, Hannover, and also within the DID-funded program line, Ukraine Digital, ensuring study success in times of crisis. First of all, with the main idea to support Ukrainian partner universities of Leibniz University in the areas where we had already established collaboration, as some scientists had to flee Ukraine, and they were also integrated at the Institute of Leibniz University, Hannover. So in this project, we have some online scholarship for researchers and students in Ukraine. But also we last year started with the fields of science like biomedical engineering, also biology, also material science, and this year we focus on computer science. So at the Leibniz University Hannover TIB, there are several units which you see on the next slide that are involved in the project. And on the Ukrainian side, the main partner is Taras Shevchenko University of Kiev and Institute of Journalistic, but also our partner universities in Dnipro, in Kharkiv, and in Kiev. So what are the aims and the main aims of the projects? To develop open educational resources that are sustainable, that can be used not only by our partner universities, but any universities. So this year we focus on computer science and integration of these courses in the curricula of partner universities, and we involve, of course, Ukrainian refugee scientists and teaching staff to create open education resources and use sustainable infrastructure of TAB, and this creates the necessary foundation for further digitalization and internationalization, and also give the possibility for actually everyone who is using their created materials, they are both in Ukrainian and in English, also to visualize and be more actually seen worldwide, all the efforts that Ukrainian scientists do in this field. So this project also, one of its aims is to strengthen the competences of both German and Ukrainian partners in open education fields. On the next slide, Margaret will talk more about the working program and also the technical side of the project.
Exactly. Thanks a lot. Yeah, what's our work program? We, in this phase of the project, this second phase, we will create 120 videos, which are under open educational resource conditions. Most of them are video lessons. And we stick to the open educational resource definition of UNESCO, which says open educational resources are learning, teaching, and research materials in any format and medium that resides in the public domain or are under copyright that have been released under an open access license that permits no cost access, reuse, repurpose, adaptation, and redistributions by others. And these are the conditions under which the video lessons are produced. The videos are made accessible and stored permanently at the TIP AV portal, which is run by us, which is a video repository. All the videos receive a digital object identifier and are subtitled in English and Ukrainian by use of AI technology such as Whisper. And other learning materials are made available in our open educational resource portal, Twillo. Also, the metadata of all the learning materials is harvested by the Open Educational Resource Search Index, ERSI, which is also developed and run by us. And its interface is already translated in Ukrainian language. All the use of all these portals is free of charge, so no costs for the authors or the users. The project results, which are the open educational resources, mainly video lessons, are integrated into the existing structures and to remain visible, findable, reusable, and citable for all students and teachers from Ukraine and worldwide. And we also did a series of e-trainer webinars to develop the digital competencies regarding the production of open educational resources for Ukrainian and German partners. And the focus was on the technical production, workflows and technology which can be used, but also on Creative Commons licenses and a lot more. This is our open portal for sharing scientific videos. Right now we have more than 40,000 quality check videos on the portal from in German, English, and Ukrainian language. The focus is, we have all scientific subjects here when it comes to videos, but we have a focus on architecture, chemistry, computer science, physics, and mathematics, and engineering. We have a lot of different genres in the video portal, such as conference and lecture recordings, but also teaching and learning videos, experiments, video abstracts, simulations, visualized research data, documentaries, and a lot more. And as I said in the beginning, most of the videos, I think like 98% or so, are under Creative Commons licenses, either CC BY or CC 0. And the URL you see on the right side, av.tib.eu. You can use it for free. You can upload your videos for free. Just go ahead. If you have questions about this, just go ahead and ask me about this. Our services concerning this platform is we host the videos in the video repository. We use standardized metadata by doubling core. They can be cited permanently because, as I said, they receive a digital object identifier and also a time code at the end, which allows citing the video by a second, which is very I think relevant for scientific purposes. If ORCIDs, ROS, and IDAs are provided, they will also be made available. We link to accompanying materials such as articles and vice versa via digital object identifiers. We provide embed code, so you can just take the embed code and integrate it in your websites or wherever you want to. We use a long-term archiving system, a professional system, which is called Rosetta Ex Libris for the videos. We use legally compliant publishing practices, license management, as I said, in compliance with data protection laws. The videos are also described in RDF, and the whole portal is completely free of use and also free of advertisement, which is, in comparison to YouTube, for example, a big advantage, I think. Yeah, then on this portal, we created, or for the authors, we created a channel for the project, a project channel where all the videos, the project results will be published. Right now, we have published 162 videos from biomedicine, material science, artificial intelligence, big data, and a lot more. And all the videos are subtitled in English and Ukrainian language. They have a project intro and outro and a logo, which we created especially for our project, which you can see here. And they all come with Creative Commons licenses. So I will post the link to the project channel, or maybe later in the chat, so you can take a look and maybe share these videos with your students and other networks. And also, as I said, we run this international search index for open educational resources in higher education, so that all the resources which are on the AV portal are harvested and also made available in this search index. And the search index is used by a lot of different open educational resource portals, so that the materials will be shared really widely with all the users out there. And the interface is in German, English, and Ukrainian language. We have implemented a cross-lingual search, and the ERSI, how we call it, is also freely available on GitLab, which you see here on the left side. So if you want to participate also in sharing materials, you can do this for free. As I said, just go ahead and publish your materials or contact me if you want to. Nataliya.
Yes, on this slide, you see the main partners and also involved institutes. So maybe you were studying or have some connection to these institutes. You're really welcome to contact the colleagues if you want also to participate. This project is now running, and now we are trying also to continue with the topics next year. On the next slide, you see the input of each institution to the project. Margaret, could you please switch the next slide? And these are the lectures that are prepared by Taras Shevchenko National University in language processing, but also this university Institute of Journalism developed all their logos, and also they are in charge of post-production, which also quite a lot of work. From Lviv Polytechnic, National University, 2 departments are engaged, and they contribute with a lot of lectures that are all already available also on the portal. So please go there and download the videos. You can use them, share, and also contact the colleagues. And on the next slide, you see the partners from National Aerospace University, Kharkiv Aviation Institutes, and 2 main departments are involved there, and the contributors also with the 3 sets of 10 video lectures on web technologies, fundamentals of programming and database. And the last but not least, so Ukrainian State University of Science and Technology. So this is our partner university from Dnipro, where also we have refugee scientists in Hannover, and currently there are video lectures on neural networks and artificial intelligence. The last partner university is also Kharkiv National University of Radio Electronics. We have been cooperating with this institution since 2010 in the field of biomedical engineering, and exactly these are the main topics of the video lectures that you will find in the portal. So thank you so much for your attention. If there are any questions, of course, Margaret, now it's you.
Yeah, and also ourselves, we are participating, of course, with materials, especially in the area of Professor Auer, which is on knowledge engineering and semantic web, and the videos are already in the portal, and I will in a minute share the link with you.
So this is the contact information. If you have any questions after the webinar or have ideas, you're welcome to contact any of us. So Sarah, now we are handing back to you.
Thank you very much for that excellent presentation and for introducing your very innovative project and your work to support the higher education and research sector in Ukraine. I just have a quick question, actually. So I think maybe Margaret might be best to answer it. So you had mentioned that you had developed a series of e-training webinars on developing digital competencies. Will those webinars be available again? And do you plan maybe to share those webinars beyond the Ukrainian partners who are participating in the project?
Well, sure, absolutely. Yeah, we could cooperate here, because I think we have some very good e-trainer seminars here on different topics when it comes to the production of open educational resources, which build upon each other. So we have a basic course and an advanced course, one course which handles more the topic of rights when it comes to open educational resources, especially in the case of videos, which is not so easy. And so we would be happy to share this with you and to maybe collaborate here. And I can definitely come back to you with the courses, or with maybe we can also talk about dates or something. Yeah, definitely.
That's great. Yeah, thank you very much for that very detailed answer. So now I think in the interests of time, we will move on to the question and answer part of the webinar. So I see we have a couple of questions that have come in. The first question is to Victoria regarding the Open Research Europe platform. So this participant asks, are Open Research Europe publications considered published articles equal to publications in scientific peer-reviewed journals and reported in regular scientific reports?
Yes, correct. This is what it is. Basically, it's Auer, I mean, is a platform. It is a big journal. It's a big journal that accommodates very many different topics, or all possible different topics, as long as it's funded. But in the future, we plan that there is no eligibility, basically, aside, of course, of meeting the scientific and other guidelines. Right now, it's limited to Horizon Europe, and therefore also Marie Curie for Ukraine. It is a journal. It's the same thing. I mean, now there are a number of bigger journals. We call them mega journals or platforms. There are different names to call them, but they're, journals in the X in a much bigger scale, let's say. It is a journal. It has, as I explained, a different publishing, publishing model. So first you publish and then you get reviewed. But yes, indeed, it's the same thing. And you should look if some of you, of course, are in, obviously with Marie Curie, you're in European universities. check with your library. That I would, check there first. And if you want to see what the evaluation criteria are in the university, etc., in some cases, because we understand that researchers are, asked to produce journals, publications in high impact factor journals, they may not prefer to publish in Auer, right? So, but this is not because of the publishing model, which I would recommend to you to try, but it is because of the way the research assessment is currently. So if you cannot give like your super wow, paper to Auer that you want to give to a journal with an impact factor, still you can probably explore a number of the different journal article types that are, that you can publish in Auer, and send one of them, a smaller, or a different type of a data note or a method note or something, just to experiment also with this open peer review and post-publication model, which is really now in the future, it's what we will probably, where all publishing is gradually moving towards in the future. So it would be good. And also to experiment with peer review. So we highly recommend this, but we do understand that if your strict requirements are for impact factor journals, then Auer may not be your first choice, but it is a good choice for research. You can try it on, for some papers, as I said, and you can also find research there. So inform yourself. I think you may find interesting things and reasons for you to publish there.
Thank you very much for that answer. I just have one other question from a participant. What happens to citations of the paper which is eventually not accepted? Are they pointing to nothing since the paper doesn't actually exist?
No. The paper exists, and the paper is very much linked to the digital world, so it can be cited, but it's not. It is clear on the paper that it has not passed peer review. So we don't think it matters necessarily. I mean, why does it matter if you cite a peer-reviewed paper or not peer-reviewed paper? If you need to cite a paper, you cite a paper. So yeah, that the difference with the paper that has not passed peer review is that it will not be sent to indexers. So it will not be indexed. It will be cited, however. The citation is included, but not the indexing.
Great, thank you very much for that very detailed answer. I just have a question for the project team from Leibniz University, Hannover. So you have very exceptionally used your open access approaches and the resources that you have to support the higher education sector in Ukraine. So I was just wondering if I could ask a very broad question in terms of what you think the potential of open science is to preserve human capital within Ukraine and to contribute to the strengthening of the higher education and research sector there.
Yeah, I can maybe start. I think it's absolutely crucial that open science, because we can use these materials more widely. The entrance barriers are lowered. Especially digital education is very important in a time of a crisis. We have observed that in the pandemic. Now in Ukraine, there are many regions where presence education is also still not possible. Yeah, and then open and free access to such learning materials and resources, I think, is of great help. It also helps to make education more efficient, because we avoid duplicate efforts at different institutions, for example. So I think there are a vast number of benefits, but I guess Nataliya and maybe Margaret have some additions to that as well.
Yes, and this is also one of the priority fields for Ukrainian Ministry of Education and Research. They actually do lots of efforts in this field, and besides, for example, TIB is organizing also a conference. It's already the second conference on open science and innovation. I'm sharing the link also in the chat. And we see also from the participation of Ukrainian university in this project, of course, developing open education resources is a huge additional work, but most of the scientists also see the advantage of it. So this, first of all, sustainable resources that can be shared with the colleagues within the institutions in Ukraine. And I think after the second conference, we also know more about it. So there will be lots of speakers from Ukraine who are sharing their experience and discuss the topics of open science.
Yes, and that conference is taking place tomorrow, I believe, or is starting tomorrow.
Yes, it starts tomorrow. This is a two-day conference, and I think there will be also a recording available. And I've just shared the conference website.
Exactly. The recordings will be done by us, and then they will be published in the TIP AV portal again. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I have another question for Dr. Victoria Tsoukala. Is Erasmus Plus eligible for those who finished their PhD, like looking for postdoctoral positions?
Erasmus Plus is a separate framework program, right? Yes. So
Okay.
Yeah, so at this moment it's not, but wait, it will be. It will be very soon. So it will be before the end of the year, and because it will be we will expand eligibility to publish in order to all framework programs of the European Commission, and it has about 32. The rest, besides Horizon, also produce papers, but not as many, obviously, as Horizon Europe. But it will be open to all very soon and before the end of the year. So if you have like a paper that's coming up in December, it will be eligible. So.
Okay, so bear that in mind for any forthcoming publications. So I just have a question that I might just throw out to the panel, and whoever would like to answer, please go ahead. So what do you think are the potential challenges and barriers that researchers may encounter when transitioning to open science practices in the EU, and how can these be addressed? So whoever would like to go first.
Sure, I can say a few words. Yeah, I think we have to, of course, stress the benefits of open science. For example, that you gain more visibility, that you might get more citations, that you can have new collaborations, that it facilitates transfer. So there is a large number of benefits of following open science practices. But of course, it's a cultural change, yeah, and I think we have to explain these benefits, direct benefits for researchers, because I think if you just stress the maybe ideological advantage of open science, we will not reach the majority of researchers. The majority of researchers are interested in their particular research, in their communities. And I would say only a minority is maybe follows this like open science ideology, and that's why we have to really stress the concrete benefits for their research and for maybe also the impact they can achieve. And I think this is very important. And I think there's also a number of evidence already and empirical validations which indicate that, for example, open access publications get more cited, that open data publications also result in more usage and uptake of certain research. So I think there are very good arguments for open science.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I
Victoria?
can also add on that. You asked also about the challenges, and Sören just mentioned also the benefits. So it's highlighting the benefits. But of course, I think the biggest challenge is what I mentioned earlier, as we find across Europe, is that the research assessment system is not, I mean, even if they want to, because they see all the benefits that Sören discussed about and which we agree with. I early explained that we think it makes research more efficient, more transparent, more better, basically. So as well as allows access by citizens and makes it more trusted. So there are a lot of arguments in terms of why the research approach should be an open science approach. But the current reality is that researchers are evaluated in ways that are not conducive to doing open research, simply because, I mean, especially since their evaluation is so connected to publications, and publications are now work with an established system, within an established prestige system, and open science and open access publications and open science practices are not part of the system yet. So this system needs to change a little bit. So in the Commission, we realized that research assessment is skewed. I mean, you cannot be asking researchers to be assessed on, solely quantitative criteria that are connected to proxies of excellence, which are the journal impact factor and other relevant proxies. So there needs to be a much more to the point assessment of the research itself and the quality of the research itself, which is also qualitative, and a number of different factors and indicators that are broader than what we have now be included in that assessment, such as the impact on society, for example. That's one indicator. So, so for me, the bigger challenge is we're used to a different system. That system is more closed. It is also connected to assessment, and therefore it creates obstacles for open science. So we need to create enablers, and the change will happen both because researchers understand that it is actually better, but also because the funders and the management of universities and the leaders of universities understand that there needs to be a systemic change. So the systemic change needs to be the change in the policy and the requirements, like we require in Horizon Europe. So we require things in open access and open science, and also we encourage things, right? So we give bonus grades, let's say, in the applications. And secondly, of course, you need to create enablers also with infrastructures. So it's a combination of things that are necessary, but probably for me, the culture of the academic and research culture, which is closed, and the assessment system are the biggest obstacles that we need to supersede.
Thank you. And yes, Nataliya, please come in.
Just I would like to add that it depends very much from the field of research and field of science, because we have also lots of industry focused research, and we have the questions of property rights and also patents, and there where we talk about maybe some national interest or economic profit. So there is more difficult to persuade someone to publish, not talk about even open science. So that's I think there should be an approach that considers all these aspects, but also, as Professor Auer mentioned, we should show the advantage of it, and we saw it during Corona in the development of the vaccines, how important this international collaboration is. So that's very much depends, on my opinion, on the field of research. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. So I just have another question, again, open to any of our speakers. How can I navigate and ensure compliance with EU data protection and privacy regulations when sharing research data openly?
You have to respect data protection rules. So as I said earlier, our premise for research data is as open as possible. Actually, I didn't read it. I wrote it. I should have read it. It's and now everyone uses this motto, which is as open as possible, as close as necessary, which is only for data. For publications, it's always open. There's no exceptions. But for data, if there are reasons, and data privacy, of course, and personal data privacy is a reason for that, so it can be closed. So, I mean, we're saying that actually I think the motto is different in Horizon Europe, and we had this in Horizon 2020, and it got stuck. And I'm upset because actually, in reality, our motto is open by default for research data, closed if necessary. So you have it open unless you can't, and the reasons are explained. We understand that data are more sensitive than publications. For publications, for example, as Nataliya said, I mean, if you have a patent, you will not publish. So we are not going to ask for open access. We understand that, you know, I have a patent, I will not publish. So there may be a publication after the patent comes out. So that's a different thing. But for research data, when it's produced, it will not be open. So, I mean, if you have data privacy issues, then this is a very serious reason to limit the circulation of data and the openness, certainly. So these things must be respected. And we understand that not all data can be open.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any, sorry, Sören?
Yeah, maybe a short addition to that. I think we have also the FAIR principles, which define a bit a compromise and which can be used to implement exactly that. So they don't require that all the data is open, but at least that you have descriptions of the data available in an open form, so metadata about, and then you can be approached, for example, by other researchers, and other researchers know what kind of data you have, and it can be still facilitate collaborations or reuse of the data, but still you can have more fine-grained regulations on access on the data.
Thank
Indeed,
you.
Fair data is very important for Horizon Europe. I mean, we ask that the researchers take measures that the data is fair and open to the extent that it's possible. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any follow-up comments they'd like to make? Okay, thank you very much for those very detailed answers. I'll just maybe put one more question to the panel before we close today. Do you have suggestions for steps which researchers can take to make their research more accessible to the public and engage with citizen science projects in the EU?
I can start if you would. Yes. I mean, we recommend to share early. Sharing early is good. Also because you know, you get to have the first on your idea, to let researchers, your colleagues, know that you are, you know, this is your idea and this is your paper that you're working on. So we would suggest sharing early. And then, yeah, we do also suggest to involve citizens or citizen societies if necessary, or if relevant, rather. I mean, you see to the relevance of your project, right? Think how your project can be or is relevant to society, and try to involve the relevant actors, either in the planning or later on. Maybe have some activities to involve those actors as well, that may lend a useful perspective to your project. So, but other than that, I mean, I think there are lists of citizen science projects where you can locate relevant citizen science projects to what you're doing and involve them. But for citizens themselves, I mean, I would say, yeah, think of the relevance, and then I think this will dictate the next steps.
Great, thank you.
May briefly add to that, I think there are also very nice open infrastructures or services, like, for example, OpenStreetMaps, Wikidata, for example, and the research community can, of course, develop also citizen science projects separately, but we can also engage with these existing open platforms and infrastructures, and many do that actually. So Wikidata, for example, is I think also a crystallization point of researchers contributing to that. Our open research knowledge graph is such an infrastructure as well. And sometimes also the software underlying these projects can be used for Wikidata. For example, it's Wikibase, and there are many projects using this software infrastructure, and that simplifies the way to build such open science projects and engagement with communities a lot.
Great, thank you.
Maybe from my side,
Yep.
yes, the field of science communication is playing more and more important role at different institutions. I think for researchers, it is also important to know what is available at their institution where they are doing exchange or hosted or they are working, because there are some formats. So almost every university has a special like press department, and they are engaging in the activities to make the research that are done at the universities public, and also involve citizens. For example, in Hannover, we have also Volkswagen Foundation, which is organizing for various serial lectures, just to ensure that in some fields of science, the information also transferred in another form to the society. But also we have lots of science slams that are organized everywhere. So I think the researchers should be in exchange with their institutions at least, and get the information on available formats.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to showing the results of such projects, video is really a great mean to contribute or to share the knowledge of these projects with the society, because sometimes it's really easier to just watch videos. And we have a lot of videos in our portal, in our scientific video portal, which shows results from projects, from citizen science projects, and that's they have pretty high numbers in views. And as you can see, this is a great mean to share the knowledge from such projects.
Thank you very much. So I think, unfortunately, we are at our time for this morning. I'd just like to ask the speakers if they have any additional comments before we close.
Just thank you for organizing and introducing the projects, and for this exchange. So it's very helpful for us as well, I think.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thanks very much to all of our speakers for your time and your expertise this morning. Thank you also to the participants for your attendance today and for your questions and engagement with the topic. I'd also like to thank our partners, the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation and the European University Association, and of course the European Commission for making this event and the scheme possible through their financial support. Thank you also to my colleague Dominic Alvite, who has been answering questions in the background and ensuring that this webinar has run smoothly this morning. So as I said, we will share all speaker presentations and also the recording with you within the next few days, and we will make sure that all of the resources mentioned throughout this morning are available on our website. So thank you very much to all. We hope to see you at future MSCA4Ukraine events, and have a good rest of the day.